Yes, folks, it's January 2023. It's the month in any year where we cast our eye forward and look into the future with hopes and dreams and wishes and desires in our heart. And I've been doing some reflecting, some pre-reflecting, if you will, thinking about my action figure collecting and the lines that I pick up quite heavily at this moment in time. And I've been looking forward with hopes, dreams, wishes, and desires for my action figure collecting in 2023 and beyond. This is video number 3 in the series where I'm sharing and summarizing those thoughts. And in this video, we're going to be talking about McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse. Yes, folks, welcome to Mod Extra Games and Collectibles. I hope you enjoy spending some time here on my channel today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with me. And I am, as I said in the intro there, looking forward into 2023 and beyond and sharing some of my hopes, dreams, wishes and desires for some of the lines that I am collecting quite heavily at this moment in time. Part 1 was G.I. Joe Classified, Part 2 was Marvel Legends, and today it's about McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse. And that's probably the smallest line, the one I'm least heavily collecting out of those 3 that I've just mentioned. And there's reasons for that I'll actually get into this video, because I'm doing a kind of very specific thing. There's a sort of very particular type of DC Comics character thing that I want going on. And Todd is a bit more infrequent with producing that than, say, G.I. Joe Classified or Marvel Legends is in that space. So anyway, I'll get into it. I'm already in the weeds and I'm only minutes in the video, aren't I? So I've got 10 items on the list to share with you today. 5 character requests on my wish list that I'd like to see them get round to producing, that I would love to have in my collection and own and put on my display. And then I've got 5 items which are sort of whole line wish list, hopes and dreams, things that I would like to see across the entire range of figures in DC Multiverse, not just like a one specific one kind of thing. So let's get into it. Let's start talking about DC Multiverse. Please feel free at any point throughout the video to hop into the comments down below and get into conversation with me about any of these points. Or if you get to the end of the video and there's something that you were hoping for that I've not mentioned, make sure you get down in the comments below and have a conversation with me about that too. But without further ado, let's get cracking with number 1. Okay then, folks, so number 1 on my list, very straightforward item for the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse, hopes, dreams, desires, and wishes for 2023 and beyond from me, from Chris. I'm fairly sure I'm not alone in this, actually. I just would like to see a lot more classic costume, classic uniform, classic design, iconic design figures in the line. Just, go back to the heart of it and give us more classic superhero costume looking characters. The ones that spring to your mind's eye when you name that character. It just feels to me like Todd McFarlane is cherry picking out stuff that he can. I describe it as McFarlaneizing or spawnifying. If it's got some spikes, if they're dressed in black, if he can find a way of integrating some barbed wire or some chainmail armor, then he's all in on it. And there is no shortage of more obscure or more specialist comic book lines or more specialist interest comic book lines in the DC world where this exists. Death Metal immediately springs to mind. He's done loads of Death Metal figures. But that's not what I want from an action figure line. I want more classic, iconic costume looks. I want Keith Giffen, Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, the uniform they wore for like 20, 30 years. You know what I mean? How many Batmans have we got? And how many of them are actually just sort of good, old-fashioned, classic-looking Batman that's lined up with what you associate with, what your mind's eye sees when you close your eyes and you think of Batman. You know what I mean? There's just not enough of it in the line. And what I've noticed is towards the back end of last year, there started to be a little bit more of a movement in that direction. We've got things like the Hush Batman coming out. I've got that guy on pre-order. We've seen this Booster of Blue Beetle double pack. We've got some more kind of iconic storyline representations like the Nightfall characters and the sort of 90s Batman stuff that was really popular. So I'm hopeful that we will see more of this going forward. But yeah, I just need less Death Metal flashes and more good old-fashioned classic red and yellow Wally Wests. You know what I mean? I need my Batman to have a yellow bat symbol on his chest and a yellow utility belt, please. A nice, bright, vivid yellow one that looks just like it did through the 60s, 70s, 80s, and into the 90s. You know what I mean? It's just too infrequent that we get a good, old-fashioned, classic, iconic-looking DC character in the line. And so that's first on the list for me. Okay, number 2 on the list, and it's another character request this time around. I think we are long overdue a good classic look. It's a theme that's going to run all the way through the video, as I've just mentioned there. Now, a good classic look Wonder Woman figure. We haven't had a core kind of mainline, iconic looking Wonder Woman to use in our displays as of yet. We've had lots of really random ones with mohawks and massive battle axes and in full suits of armor and the Wonder Woman 1984 gold bird thing and what have you. In fact, the Wonder Woman, the Gal Gadot Wonder Woman figure is probably the closest thing we've got right now. There's more to say on that subject around female characters, which I'll get to in a minute. But yeah, I think we long overdue a nice, iconic, classic costume, Wonder Woman. Okay, number 3 on the list, a whole line request for the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse line. I perhaps should have mentioned this one before I brought Wonder Woman up, actually, because the female book needs looking at. The female figures don't look right. I feel like they're being given quite a disservice by McFarlane Toys right now. I know he made some controversial statements about female action figures in the past, which are patently not true, because I am absolutely chomping at the bit to have some of my favourite female characters from the DC Comics universe in my McFarlane Toys collection and in my shelf display. But the stuff they've released so far doesn't appeal to me because it is obscure versions of Wonder Woman or whatever, or something doesn't quite look right with the book. Something's not there. I think, broadly speaking, even with the male figures, actually, when it's that kind of skin-tight lycra superhero costume thing, spandex or whatever, reveals some of the flaws in the articulation design. Booster Gold's a good example. In fact, where's my Booster Gold? Yeah, so where there's not a belt or anything across the middle, the kind of that rubbery nappy design thing that they've got going on in their articulation, doesn't look right. Booster's not too egregious, but photos I've seen and reviews I've seen of female McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse figures really bring it to the top. You know, it's very eye-catching and it's quite off-putting, and I think it's a disservice. I think it's an absolute disservice. I've pre-ordered the 90s look purple costume Catwoman. That one stands out less than, say, what was it? There was an Arkham Asylum Catwoman figure that I had my eye on, and then I saw a review and I was like, oh no, because it looks very odd and disproportionate, and I just don't think they've got it. They've not got the sculpt down, they've not got the book down. They need to work on the female form, the female figure, so that I can have great Wonder Womans in my collection, because I really want some of my favourite female characters, who I'm not going to name because I've listed some of them as my character wish list requests. But yeah, if there's one thing that's really letting down that shelf is an absence of some great female characters. But kind of don't want them yet until I feel like they've got the body, the book, the articulation figured out better in that space. The problem is, from Todd's comments in the past on like the Shartimus Prime interview, I'm not sure they are going to take a look at it, which is a shame. Okay then, folks, so number 4 on my list is a character item for the wish list now. I would like to see a McFarlane Toys version of a classic looking DEADSHOT character. I'm a big fan of the John Ostrander era Suicide Squad, also a massive fan of the Gail Simone Villains United and Secret Six comic books. DEADSHOT was a very prominent character in those storylines. I also love the times he kind of threw down with Batman in the 90s when I was reading the books, the Batman comics in the early 90s and stuff. I think he's just got a really interesting look. He's going to bring that splash of colour I feel like we need more of in the McFarlane line. And he's just an iconic character. Just an iconic character, and to get him in his red with his yellow boots and his all over silver mask. Although now I think about it, I was about to mention his gauntlets, and he's got gun gauntlets, hasn't he? And there's like a whole thing with Warner Brothers about putting firearms in the toys, which has been reported on. So maybe that's why they've not done a DEADSHOT. That's a thinker. I wonder if they can get an exception. I mean, the character's name is DEADSHOT after all. But yeah, there we go. Number 4. I'm not going to bang on about it. He's a popular character. I'm sure there's loads of you out there who go, oh yeah, DEADSHOT would be nice. So let's see a DEADSHOT, please, Todd. Okay then, folks, number 5 on the list now. It's a whole line request for McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse. And I'm going to say right at the top, before I say what number 5 is, I'm going to point out that I am fully aware of the cheek that this request carries with it. There's a bit of cheekiness. You know, I'm sat here doing a whole list of wish list items. Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you sort this out? Can you sort that out? And then I'm going to say my number 5, which is keep the price. I like the price, and I'm always tentatively nervous that as generally the action figure market is hiking its prices up, particularly Hasbro, although there's obviously the big greed machine driving some of that as well. But yeah, the price is awesome. They are really, you know, they're big 7-inch figures. They've got some heft to them. They're sculpted so well. And the price is tremendous. So I'm just proper hopes and dreams, fingers crossed that for as long as possible, I know Todd said some stuff on this subject already, but for as long as possible, they managed to maintain the slightly discount price, because I think we're getting lots of good value. Despite my criticisms that I'm describing in this video, I still think they are tremendous value. You're getting great figures for the price that they're coming in at. So yeah, number 5, keep the price. Okay then folks, number 6 on the list, another character request to pop on Todd McFarlane's wish list from Chris, because we know he's going to be watching and paying very careful attention to what I've got to say and making notes, because, you know, obviously all the big names follow this channel, and therefore you should too. Hit the subscribe button and all that good YouTube malarkey. But no, number 6 is a character request, and while I'm on the subject of being a big fan of the Suicide Squad and a big fan of the Secret Six, Gail Simone's Secret Six, as I mentioned with the DEADSHOT request, I'd like to see a CATMAN. I'd like to see a CATMAN, but the more kind of, you know, the more muscular, changed man that Tom Blake is in the Secret Six and the Villains United series. I think it would be an easy sculpt for them to put together. There's probably Batman pieces that they could reuse. I think he could be a very striking figure, interesting color scheme again to bring a bit more of the color palette to the DC Multiverse shelf in these kind of oranges and browns that he offers. I think that's just really interesting. He's a great looking character. He's probably a bit more obscure, than some of the others that I have mentioned and will be mentioning later in this video. But I just love that series. That comic book was tremendous. I enjoyed it a great deal, and I developed a fondness for the CATMAN character. So let's see a CATMAN, please, Todd. Okay then, folks, number 7 on the list, a whole line request here. I think there needs to be something done about the proportionality of the hands. Sometimes the figure's hands look really weird. And I know if you've watched my whole set of videos so far, you're like, why is he always going on about hands? He was going on about swappable hands in G.I. Joe Classified. He was going on about female hands in Marvel Legends. But it's because it's like they're chucked in at the last minute. It's like the last thing they seem to sculpt, and they don't always quite seem to work, or they're not always proportionate to the body. When I went and I looked back at my review of John Constantine here, for example, I commented on the fact that his hands look kind of, once you see it, they sort of look oddly big. You know, like Crichton in Red Dwarf, his big robot hands. They look like those. They don't look proportionate to the rest of the body. I can't get him in focus here because of the way I've set my camera up. But Superman, I didn't review this one because it's an older figure that I've had for a while. But again, his hand, look at this open palm hand. Once you see it, you can't stop seeing it. It's not proportionally kind of right, especially when you've got some of these older figs. And I thought they were kind of moving away from this, but I know some of the newer previews have got them. This kind of ball joint wrist thing that McFarlane does, especially when you've got that, it almost accentuates how disproportionate in size the hands are, and they look like mannequin, proper mannequin plastic dummy in the window of a shop kind of hands, and it just really breaks it when you've got such great sculpt work going on in the main body of the figure. I mean, Constantine's got loads of lovely details, and his jacket's all creased up. That's not been hung up for weeks. Constantine's had that on his bedroom floor, you know, in his tie, and the rips in his jeans, and the hair sculpt, you know, such great sculpting. And then you're like, yeah, but he's got, you know, shop window mannequin hands. It's just a little touch that's letting down the whole experience. And yeah, I'd just like to see better handwork. So yeah, number 7 on the list is more proportionate hands, please. All right, folks, number 8 on the list now. It's another character request. I'm going to cheat a little bit though, because this is actually 2 characters, but I feel like it's a double pack like Booster Gold and Blue Beetle. And that request is Fire and Ice. If we're going to have a Booster Gold and a Blue Beetle, then we need a Fire and Ice. Again, when we're talking about kind of classic, iconic characters that have literally been a presence for decades and have been part of some of the most kind of notable storylines, Justice League storylines in particular, through the course of DC Comics history, then yeah, Fire and Ice. I know they're kind of, I mean, they're not big ticket. They're not big ticket. When you're talking about Booster Gold and Blue Beetle being kind of B-listy almost, you could argue that Fire and Ice for a long time now have been kind of C-listy, but yeah, they're such a big part of 80s and 90s Justice League. There was a good 2 decades where they were a firm, staunch presence. They had lots of great storylines. They were there at Fire and Ice were there at the death of Superman in the mid-90s, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think a great double pack opportunity would be Fire and Ice. I think you could do some really interesting sculpting stuff. Again, the whole color palette and the more kind of classic comic booky, superhero-y look about them, I think would be a great addition to my display shelf. And I'm just really fond of the characters. I have very fond memories of the Keith Giffen era, you know, where Guy Gardner's hitting on Ice and everybody's hitting on Fire because she's a supermodel, and just I think she's really interesting. The Green Flame, it's just interesting, isn't it? It's just an interesting character. So yeah, double pack this one. Character addition to the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse wish list. Fire and Ice, please. Okay, folks, number 9 on the list. This is a whole line request for the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse series. I took a look back over the handful of video reviews that I put out around McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse through 2022. And there was one thread, one kind of common theme that I referenced and talked about throughout every review, and that is articulation. I would like to see some small improvements, some minor improvements in the articulation space on these figures, particularly below the waist. I've said it a few times in my video reviews that I feel like McFarlane Toys figures, and particularly the DC Multiverse ones, they're more like kind of statue figures, shelf display pieces that have been given a bit of action figure articulation for flavor, rather than action figures with a statue quality look to them. If you get what I mean, I know I'm kind of double speaking there, but I think folks out there will get what I'm reaching for there. And it feels like they sort of sculpt it in a way where they've predetermined how you should really have it on your shelf. They've kind of predetermined what the extent and limits of, you know, it should be a shelf display piece, and the playability and the posability for people like me who like to photograph their figures or try and get creative with their displays. McFarlane Toys stuff doesn't quite get there. It looks great. I mean, the sculpts are tremendous and the detail in them just blows me away. But from below the waist in particular, a thigh cut, although there's possibly an aesthetic thing that they don't want to do there, at the very minimum, a boot cut. They very rarely have boot cuts on the McFarlane Toys figures, and that would help out an enormous amount. And like the Mega Figs as well, like a lot of the Mega Figs don't have butterfly joints, for example, or they're single elbowed. So just some small improvements in the articulation space would really take this line to the next level for me, because I'd like to have the extent of posability that I experience with the Hasbro lines, but with the quality of the sculpts that I think, you know, McFarlane really nails. Great sculpt work. So yeah, just some small improvements in articulation, particularly in the leg area, please. And finally on the list, number 10 is another character request. I would really love to see a great looking Black Canary figure. When we talk about characters, classic characters that have been so prominently there through decades of big, important DC comic storylines, Black Canary is, you know, always there. She's ever present because she's a tremendous character. She's awesome. She'd be such an interesting looking character as well, you know, with a leather jacket and her fishnets with big boots and the blonde hair. I mean, I love the character. I mentioned before that I'm a fan of Gail Simone's Secret Six. Well, I'm also a big fan of the Gail Simone Birds of Prey series. That was tremendously written and really great piece of work. And if you get a whole set of an Oracle Huntress and a Black Canary, I'd be even happier. But I'm not greedy. I'll just ask for the one Black Canary today. But I think, yeah, she's an iconic character. She's one of the great love interests, one of the great pairings in the DC Comics universe. You've got, Superman and Lois Lane, you've got Batman and Catwoman, and you've got Green Arrow and Black Canary, and the Hawk people and what have you. So, yeah, I just think she's, again, just an omission that needs taking care of. And it's the nice middle ground between a classic look character that old school 80s and 90s DC Comics fans like me really want to see, and spornified McFarlane stuff, because she has got a leather jacket, and I think she's got sort of spikes on the back of her gloves that you could chuck in, so why not? It could work, Todd. Let's see what you can do. But yeah, Black Canary, providing that, of course, as I mentioned before, that female book is brushed up a bit. Yeah, but yeah, Black Canary, that's number 10 on my list, and my final character request as well. Folks, please take a moment, take the time to head down to the comments below this video. Share your thoughts. Are you a DC Multiverse collector? What are your hopes, dreams, desires, wishes, and the like for 2023 and beyond with this line? Let me know if you think my suggestions are bobbins. Let me know if you think my suggestions are on the button, and everything in between. I just love seeing what people's thoughts are, getting into conversation with you, and, of course, if you're not already subscribed, make sure you take a moment to hit that subscribe button. And if I've entertained you with my video today, then take a moment to hit the like. If I've not entertained you, then, I don't know, use the dislike. I say this all the time. If that's what you want to do, that's what you're going to do. I don't want you to, but that's what it's there for. Just engage. Just engage. Let me know. Give me the feedback, particularly the subscribe and like, because that lets me know I'm going in the right direction and I'm producing the kind of content that people want to take a look at. Otherwise, I am hugely grateful for you to take the time to spend with me today talking about my DC Multiverse collecting, or what I'd like to see for the line in the future. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you around these parts on another video sometime soon. So take it easy, folks.